Howdy, and welcome back to my channel for the third and final installment in this little series here. My last two cloth victims are this absolutely adorable print with purple and green cocktails all over it and little skulls and eyeballs on a black backdrop, and another spooky gray sky print, but this one has little bats all over it. As usual, the first order of business was to cut out my pattern and mark the darts, which I only did on the fashion fabrics because the lining is kind of boring, and I feel like if you're watching this series, you've seen that process before more or less. A bit discouraged with my second pattern, for this pair I used my original pattern and just adjusted the neckline, giving it a wide V and did like 6 mock-ups with the sleeves, finally resulting in my sleeve drafting a This pair of dresses are both V-necked with long sleeves with contrasting black cuffs and kind of an interesting pleated and paneled combo skirt design that I decided to try out because I thought it would be fun, which I'll go into more detail with later. You can see me cutting out those panels here. I used the modified burrito method to do my assembling again, but this time it was a little bit different since my center front wasn't open. I had to do it properly, which is to sew up the neckline, right sides together, sew the sleeve onto the armhole before the side seams are done up, and then roll up the open sleeve towards the shoulder like a burrito to make room to meet the lining and the fashion fabric together, right sides together, leaving the last inch or so open for after the side seams are done up. Here you can see me doing that rolling up of the sleeve. You want to make sure not to do it too tight because you will need to kind of finagle the fabric to get it to not be sewing the sleeve to the lining or the fashion fabric or both. But another good thing about this method is that you never have to worry if you've put your sleeve on backwards or not, as long as the fabric has a clear right or wrong face. Shoulder seam lining sewn in, you can turn everything inside out and then do up your side seams and your sleeve seams, however you're choosing to do those. I chose to use French seams for my sleeves in this case because I was using a different closure method where my closure essentially wasn't in the main sleeve seam, but instead in a little slit on the front side of the sleeve. You can see me doing up the French seams on these sleeves on this video, but you can't see me doing up that slit because I decided to do it in the method similar to which you would do a bound buttonhole, but it was the first time I'd ever really tried practically a technique like that, and it turned out looking really bad and clunky and just not very pretty in general. So you can look up someone else's video tutorial on how to do bound buttonholes. And essentially what I did was a one-sided bound buttonhole. My hands are covering it, but it's pretty easy if you just open up the lining and the fashion fabric and look at the armpit where you're supposed to sew to finish that seam and have a fully completed arm sky shoulder combo. And with that, I was able to move on to skirt assembly, and here you can see me making 1/2-inch pleats in what is the hip panels of the gray dress. And these are just standard 1/2-inch knife pleats towards the back, and they are French seamed to more standard flared panels that are on the front and on the back. There are 2 flared panels in the back on each side, and then the front has a center panel with a standard panel on either side of it. I think this technique gave skirts a really interesting shape, and it's definitely something that I want to play around with a little more, and it gives the skirt a lot of just fun movement, but I can see why people don't do that on a daily basis, and it certainly didn't cut down on the amount of French seaming that I had to do from anywhere. With that, I started working on my cuffs. One side of my cuffs is interlined, one side is not. And the cocktails dress has lime green top stitching, buttonholes, and buttons that I think make the cocktails dress just a little bit more fun. Although the bat dress might be a little bit more wearable. At least that's what the lady at my laundromat says. Then it was time to pin and sew on bodices to skirts, and for this set I did choose to sew my lining down by machine, mostly because I was running out of time to actually finish those projects before I had to get out and film them, but also because I wanted to carry the green visible top stitching onto that seam on the cocktails dress, and wasn't too offended by it existing on the gray dress. Then it was time to install my zippers, and I think I'm getting better with zippers somehow, because this time I didn't have too much trouble with my zippers wiggling around when I just sewed them down via pins on the fly with the zipper together, and I was able to get a pretty good result. It's a little bit uneven, and you can kind of tell on the gray dress, but it's not too bad. And then it was hem time, and I only actually filmed the hemming of the gray dress because I was running short on time and needed to charge my camera battery. But both of them are secured in this way. I just sewed the hem tape on the edge, turned it up until you couldn't see the hem tape from the right side, and stitched it down via machine, nothing too frilly. And with the hem done, so are these dresses. I'm in love with that cocktails dress, which I later sewed 3 lime green buttons to the front of to further enhance the lime greenness. Though, unfortunately, I don't have too many pictures of it. The lighting was starting to get bad by the time we were able to get out the day we photographed it, because daylight savings time. But thank you so much for joining me on this long project. And if you did any fun Halloween-themed sewing, let me know about it in the comments or tag me at Spooky Scary Scouticus. You have a very good day. See you soon.